Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. Alright everyone, welcome to episode 55 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan in third COVID-19 state of emergency amid rising infections in metropolitan areas.
Japanese apparel makers in catch-22 over Uyghur cotton uproar.
Man fined 300,000 yen after defecating near West Japan's supermarket checkout line.
This week in Japan. Alright, so here's this week's top news item. Japan in third COVID-19 state of emergency amid rising infections in metropolitan areas.
On April 23rd, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga declared a state of emergency, covering Tokyo as well as Osaka, Kyoto, and Hyogo prefectures in an effort to curb a surge in COVID-19 during the Golden Week holidays.
Tougher restrictions such as the closure of establishments that serve alcohol and major commercial facilities are in place through May 11th.
Although this state of emergency, as with the first two, will not entail a hard lockdown like some other countries have imposed, spectators will be effectively banned from large events, while train and bus operators are asked to end operations earlier on weekdays, with fewer running on weekends and holidays.
Major commercial facilities, including department stores and shopping malls, have also been asked to suspend operations, with the exception of floor space to sell daily necessities.
Shigeru Omi, an infectious disease expert who chairs a government subcommittee on the coronavirus response, has said that the state of emergency may be extended beyond May 11th if the situation does not improve sufficiently.
This latest move comes as cases of COVID-19 variant strains have been rapidly increasing. 90% of new coronavirus cases recorded mid-April in Tokyo were variant infections, according to Tokyo Metropolitan Government estimates, which was revealed during its April 22nd monitoring conference.
To prevent travel to sightseeing spots and other locations, the government has asked expressway operators to suspend the 30% holiday toll discount, which is usually available for users of the electronic toll collection system during the Golden Week holiday.
Additionally, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government has called on restaurants to refrain from serving alcohol.
So, Golden Week has been ruined.
Woo! Yeah, bummer.
You know, I think we should have seen this coming, but I actually, until just a few days ago, didn't think that they would call another state of emergency. But here we are.
Same here. I'm a little surprised. I know the numbers are really bad in Osaka, but I guess if the new variant is this bad in Tokyo, it does kind of make sense. I mean, that's what globally a lot of people are worrying about this as well, right?
Exactly. And it's, of course, it's hard to say whether this third state of emergency will be effective, though, in that, especially during the second state of emergency, it was widely reported that people did not heed it as proactively as they did the first time.
Yeah. Japanese apparel makers in catch-22 over Uyghur cotton uproar.
The Mainichi has reported that Japanese clothing giants such as Uniqlo and Muji have found themselves caught between their global business initiative and human rights issues, as international human rights groups are stepping up criticism following reports of forced labor involving ethnic minorities in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
While the northwestern Chinese region has been known as a major producer of high-quality cotton, Uyghur and other ethnic minorities are reportedly being forced to engage in cotton picking and other work.
Better Cotton Initiative, an international non-governmental organization that certifies and supports environmentally and human rights-friendly cotton growing, released a statement in March 2020 regarding cotton produced in Xinjiang, saying that the group could not implement reliable certification programs under the current circumstances. The group accordingly announced that it would not carry out certification during the 2020 to 2021 farming and harvesting season.
Behind the move apparently lies the international community casting increasingly stern eyes on cotton growing, in which forced labor and other human rights violations are suspected.
For this reason, a flurry of apparel brand operators have publicly announced that their products are free of Xinjiang cotton. These movements, however, have irked China, and Swedish clothing giant H&M in particular has taken the brunt of the backlash.
Internet users in China fiercely bashed H&M, criticizing the brand for not buying Xinjiang cotton while making money in China. Eventually, H&M products became unsearchable on online shopping apps in China.
In response, BCI and H&M were forced to remove their announcements regarding Xinjiang-produced cotton from their official websites in a bid to avoid angering Chinese consumers who are turning increasingly patriotic over the issue.
Under these circumstances, Japanese firms are finding themselves in a hard-pressed position. Tadashi Yanai, chairman and CEO of Fast Retailing, the company behind the Uniqlo and GU brands, declined to specify whether Xinjiang cotton is used in the company's products, which are also sold at its Uniqlo stores in China. With regard to the human rights issues in the region, he skirted around the subject, saying, "I will refrain from commenting as it's not so much a human rights issue as a political one."
In a report released by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute in 2020, Fast Retailing was accused of having a deal with a factory in China where Uyghur people were suspected to have been engaged in forced labor. Regarding this issue, Yanai only commented, "We've been monitoring all our factories, and if any problem arises, we will suspend our transactions with them."
Ryohin Keikaku Corporation, which operates its Muji brand stores in China, is also among the 14 Japanese companies that were implicated in the Australian think tank's report. So Parker, there's a lot to unpack here. As Americans, there's a few things in this story that I think anybody from the States is going to raise their eyebrows immediately, right? You got forced labor, cotton picking, and then global brands that are supposedly using this. I mean, dear God, the first obvious statement is, how heinous and disgusting this is, but, the global brands that are caught in between it, right? Like H&M is really big in the States.
Well, I think this is part of the whole thing that a lot of Japanese firms refer to as China risk, which sounds very loaded because it is. Japanese firms, of course, operate globally, and especially when dealing with Western countries, are expected to uphold global standards of everything, from human rights to procurement to supply chain. And American brands have been caught in the same situation. I mean, everyone remembers people hearing about for the first time these Nike sweatshops, and a lot of these global brands don't know that much about their supply chain, or perhaps they are turning a blind eye to some of the things that are happening in the early stages in order to bolster their profits.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get pretty biased here, but Yanai's comment saying this isn't a human rights issue, this is a political one. I mean, what is this, like the Jeff Bezos of Japan or something? I mean, dear God, that's I don't know. This guy seems very disconnected from reality to say something like that.
He went on to say, "The death of one is a tragedy, but the death of millions is just a statistic."
Oh my God. Did
Stalin ever go into apparel?
This is a big box of yikes, man. Like, dear God, who would want to even get caught up in any of this? I mean, Any U.S. company should just be like running the hell.
Well, in the case of fast retailing and Ryohin Keikaku, it's actually a big box store full of yikes.
Oh my god.
I think it's easy to say from a consumer perspective that these brands need to own up to their decision-making processes. And I mean, if that means they get some blowback in China, then tough shit.
Yeah.
But, human rights, that's, last time I checked, the UN was pretty specific on what human rights are and what human rights violations entail. And companies are not supposed to be supporting human rights abuses.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
For sure. Up next, man fined 300,000 yen after defecating near West Japan supermarket checkout.
The Mainichi has also reported that a man in southwestern Japan was accused of defecating near a supermarket's checkout counter and fined 300,000 yen, which is about $2,700 in an April 21 court ruling.
The accused is an unemployed man, 53 years old, residing in the Fukuoka prefecture city of Kitakyushu. Around 4 a.m. on February 18th, the man allegedly excreted feces on the floor near the cash register area of a 24-hour supermarket in the same city, forcing store employees and others to... God damn it.
This is so gross.
Are we seriously going to do this? All right. Forcing store employees and others to clean the spot.
Sorry.
It's all good. According to the April 21st ruling by the Fukuoka District Court's Kokura branch and other sources.
Oh God, I can't stop.
This is so disgusting.
Who are the other sources? Toto and Lixel? We sent some of our poop experts to the scene of the crime. The defendant was arrested at the scene by Fukuoka Prefectural Police on suspicion of indecent exposure for allegedly exposing his lower body before female employees and other individuals. He was subsequently sent to the Kokura branch of the Fukuoka District Public Prosecutor's Office and indicted on suspicion of forcible obstruction of business. Under Japan's penal code, forcible obstruction of business is specified as a crime in which an individual obstructs the business of another by force, and those found guilty are subjected to either imprisonment of up to 3 years or a fine of up to 500,000 yen, which is about $4,600.
According to the opening statement read aloud by a prosecutor in the trial's first court hearing on April 15th, the defendant, who entered the supermarket while under the influence of alcohol, told an employee, "I need to take a dump." That's really what he said, but was informed that he could not use the toilet late at night on the grounds of crime prevention measures. He then became infuriated and said, "I'll do it here then." That's also really what he said, as he lowered his pants and underwear in front of employees and others to excrete.
In response to questioning by a lawyer, the defendant explained that he had been repeatedly in and out of hospital due to alcohol dependency, and that he also drank great amounts of shochu alcoholic drinks from the afternoon of the day prior to the incident. He said that his heart had degenerated owing to factors including his father's death in January 2021, and stated that he felt immensely that his behavior was quote-unquote not human.
Damn, yeah, loaded with shochu from the day before.
I probably really needed to go.
Yeah, like 48-hour binger right there. After Judge Kenji Ino told him to quit drinking entirely while using these shameful feelings as a reference, the man expressed the desire to join a self-help group that aims for recovery from alcoholism. "If I can promise that I'll quit drinking, my life will only be ruined."
The ruling stated that the defendant's pre-sentencing detention period would be factored in the payment of fines by converting 1 day into 7,500 yen, which is roughly $70. Therefore, even if the criminal punishment of 300,000 yen is finalized, The defendant, who was detained for some 2 months, would not have to pay the fines. Man, I would hate to be the defendant. So what are you in here for? I took a dump in supermarket. Wow, that is a really uncool thing to do, bro.
I feel like
Couldn't you have just been like, trafficking meth like everybody else?
I feel like all the his mafia inmates will get a quick laugh and then just beat the shit out of him.
I wonder if that happens in Japan, though. I think, because, I think ass whoopings are sort of par for the course in American prisons.
Yeah.
As is the subject of so many Hollywood movies. But you never hear about this sort of thing happening in Japan.
Yeah, maybe because the information is just blocked completely.
Or maybe just Japanese prisoners aren't that crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, this is real, folks. Kind of wild. Interestingly enough, in Florida, we had a burglar like this. He would steal and then steal a necklace and then defecate on someone's floor. I remember being a kid. This a person in our neighborhood had this happen to them.
So it's not a cat burglar, but a shat burglar.
Yeah, a shat burglar. Yeah.
Whoa.
But in Japan, this is pretty damn I'd say rare. Like I don't hear about these kinds of
I
stories.
haven't seen this one before. This is a new one.
Yeah. That's a serious alcohol problem. I love that he was specifically drinking shochu as well, because that is the strongest stuff here, man. Oh my god, everybody knows, right?
As soon as I read that, I'm like, yep, that'll do it.
Yeah. It's like a drug, basically, like grain alcohol or something. After the ruling was handed down on April 21st, Judge Eno said, "You must realize that this is not a crime to be taken lightly. Please do your best from square one so that you won't disappoint your parents who passed away." The defendant then nodded quietly in agreement.
That must have been a really, really rough court hearing to be a participant in.
Yeah. There are a couple of guys probably really trying not to laugh, hearing all the specifics. Or maybe it was just really gross.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a combination between people who thought it was disgusting and people who thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine the Japanese dude with the boards, and he has a diagram of where things happen.
Ooh.
They might have had a little iconic picture for
those diagrams. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? They have on the news, and and then they had the photo with
and so that it won't be gross, they just use the poop emoji.
Yeah, they used the poop emoji, and then how many kilos it was. 7.2 kilos.
I mean, think about the cops who had to respond to the scene. It's well, somebody's got to measure the poop.
Yeah.
Get the rookie in. He needs a real job to do.
Oh my gosh.
and they've got to take pictures. Oh god.
Yeah.
Think about
just
it.
thinking
Gross.
about it is gross. Yeah.
Sorry, listeners. That was gross.
Yeah, but it's another day in Tokyo.
Or Kitakyushu.
Yeah. More specifically.
Next up on the Weird Thing of the Week, a majority in Japan shun drinks with bosses and clients amid pandemic.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. The Weird Thing of the Week.
Oh, hell no! Okay.
A recent GG article talks about the result of a new private sector survey that showed how the majority of people in Japan are turning down calls from their superiors or clients for drinking together.
70% of survey respondents said they turned down invitations to go drinking from their superiors, while 60% answered they refuse similar invitations from clients.
Research firms that carried out the survey said the spread of remote work amid the coronavirus pandemic made it easier to decline drinking invitations.
The online survey was conducted from March 15th to 19th jointly by Nexer Incorporated's research arm and Diamond Online, a website run by publisher Diamond Incorporated, targeting 1,020 people between their 20s and 70s.
The survey showed that 14% of respondents answered they forthrightly reject superiors' calls for drinking together, and that 56% said they declined in an apologetic tone. Meanwhile, 12% said they agree with an air of reluctance.
Gotta read that air, Aaron.
Through Zoom.
And so 70% said that they believe it is up to each individual to decide whether to accept calls from superiors for drinking together, while 22% said it is necessary to say yes all the time or to a certain degree. You know, this is really creating a shift in Japanese business culture because before the pandemic, you know, outright refusing such an invitation can often be considered as rude or even insubordinate in Japanese business culture, which is extremely hierarchical.
Oh, yeah. I remember starting out working here. If anyone higher rank than you invites you to drink, you go. You can't say no.
Yeah, when I was working in a Japanese company, I don't think I've ever refused a drinking invitation.
Yeah. To be honest with you, when I was younger, it was kind of an obvious yes, because usually it was really fun. Like if the boss is paying for everything, then hell yeah, it's going to be a crazy night out. But they do it on weekdays too, right? That always killed me. Like doing like a binger on like a Tuesday or Wednesday and then having to go to work at 7 a.m. the next day.
Yeah, that's what surprised me because I thought that there was like this, you know, unspoken rule that if you, you know, went out and had a rager, then you kind of take the next morning off.
Yeah.
This is not the case in Japan.
No,
You're expected to show up at, you know, 9:00 on the clock.
I remember this coworker had done like 2 days in a row and like I remember him like splashing his face and he was like still red in the face at like the 9 a.m. morning meeting and like he couldn't even open his eyes and his voice is all crackling and stuff like
I agree with that proposal.
So unhealthy, you know.
No, I've definitely heard and seen people who just you know, went drinking all night and then just went to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sleep, that's for sissies.
They're really good at taking naps at their desk, you know, like 10-minute power naps. Yeah, that's what I discovered as well. Asked about feelings towards superiors and clients who frequently ask for drinking together, 37% said they are uncomfortable with losing their private time, accounting for the largest portion of all respondents.
This was followed by 24% of respondents who said they are not uncomfortable with attending drinking parties as a part of their job duties.
A representative from Nexer's research arm said that young employees generally don't like drinking together with superiors or colleagues. The pandemic has given them a good reason to decline such invitations.
Indeed, it has. You know, and I wonder what's going to happen even after the pandemic, because, I mean, this has obviously been going on for the past year now, and it's definitely going to change our post-pandemic business culture as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's tough to say, but I could see with, you know, remote work, it's almost become difficult to go out as much, right? If you're kind of stuck at home all day on the computer and you're expected to be in front of the computer for Zoom calls, right, at your residence. It's interesting to hear how many Japanese actually don't like this, though. That's kind of funny to me because I don't know, my perspective was always that this is just part of the culture. And like I said earlier, you know, going out with the boss actually turned out to be pretty fun for me personally because, you know, they're paying for everything and it's a wild night out, right? But if you're constantly, some of my Japanese coworkers, you know, every night they were being invited by a different guy. I think I got invited a little bit less because I was like the token foreigner at the company. So,
Aaron, don't invite him. He actually likes it. That's no fun.
Yeah.
Also, apart from not wanting to go drinking with their bosses and clients, Japan's office workers are also less enthusiastic about going back to the office.
According to the results of a Mainichi Shimbun survey conducted on 126 major Japanese companies, some 90% of companies currently using telework systems want to continue doing so even after the virus is brought under control.
But issues remain over methods of implementation of working from home, such as how to balance working hours and health, and workers and management are continuing to search for solutions. In addition, the Japanese government is drafting various rules to improve the environment for teleworking.
Despite calls by the government to reduce the number of workers in offices, a survey by the Japan Productivity Center has shown that companies in Japan have not promoted teleworking as much as you might think.
The proportion of teleworkers fell to 22% in mid-January under the second state of emergency, from 31% in May of last year when the country was under the first state of emergency. And we can only imagine that during this third state of emergency, obviously the majority of it is happening during a holiday.
Yeah.
But as for the non-holiday days, we can only imagine that most employees will still be expected to show up at the office.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, this whole third state of emergency thing, they're not banning any travel outside of Tokyo, are they?
Well, everything is voluntary, so it's always this sort of, restrict activities, avoid unnecessary outings, etc., etc. Especially Tokyo's Governor Koike has asked businesses to shut their lights off during this state of emergency after 8 p.m.
Wow.
So it's voluntary, but at the same time, the government is trying to ratchet up the level of compliance. I mean, this whole, no alcohol serving during the state of emergency is just another example of that. But at the same time, the government's focus is always on these non-essential activities, and business activities are considered as essential. So the government is not really requesting for businesses to cease operations or avoid maintaining regular business activities. And of course, the government never really talks about the dangers of pandemic spread during commuting, which we can only imagine accounts for some of these cases.
That's the biggest thing that I think is on a lot of people's minds. Like these voluntary restrictions can only go so far. But really the biggest thing, I mean, you've got like all these people packed in like almost like a petri dish on the freaking trains. It totally sucks. With that in mind, it really makes sense to keep people at home as much as possible for work reasons.
At the same time, you think, so basically 20% of the people are working from home, but 80% are not. And I can only imagine that this 20% is mainly workers at large companies and white collar workers, where blue collar workers, people working at small and medium sized companies are less entitled to this whole working from home stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's going to create a larger sense of inequality among the workforce in Japan, because obviously there are sort of kind of the haves and have nots with regard to flexibility in company work environments. And how that's going to change post-pandemic is also something that is going to be interesting, as we've really seen this sort of shift over the past 10 or so years from a Japanese society that is widely regarded as having a large middle class and less issues with inequality to deeper divisions between those who have cushy white collar permanent employment jobs and those who do not.
That's a really good point. I think we see this in the United States as well, right? Like those who have the luxury of work from home are definitely in a very different position, and it sheds light on the inequality that exists, in all countries, including Japan as well.
It's really hard to say what's going to happen to Japanese business culture, Japanese business drinking culture after the pandemic ends, because this pandemic, obviously, it's shifting lots of business and personal activities across the board and around the world. Mm-hmm. And I think Japan is only part of that, but it's going to change. I think we're going to come out of this pandemic in a totally different society.
Yeah, agreed. And other countries as well, like European countries, Spain, Italy, and Greece, who also have, similar to Japan, kind of these deep-rooted societal customs of, going out drinking. Not saying those countries are like, they only go out and drink, but there are like certain like cultural like norms, right, that involve a lot more like socializing.
Yeah, isn't it like in Spain, people will like go home after lunch and take a nap?
Yeah, that's a good example for one, right?
I guess in Spain now, where there's work from home, you can just take a nap all day.
Yeah, my friends who have lived in Barcelona have told me that like it's very, very every Friday, it's a big party at like even in like the villages, at like your local like restaurant, whatever. People will be dancing, drinking like into the morning on Fridays, right? I can only imagine like globally, everyone's trying to tame this a bit, right? But it really sucks.
In Spain, we don't ask our coworkers to go out drinking because we're already out drinking.
It's just it definitely sucks though, because this is it's so human for us, right? I'd love for things to be back to normal and to enjoy Tokyo for what it has been for the past 10 years. But yeah, we can't. We're deprived of that right now. So.
We're going to have to move to Inaka, Aaron.
Yeah.
It's the only place where old Japan will stay.
Yeah, maybe.
Or stay in Tokyo where nobody goes out drinking anymore and everybody just stares at their phone, talking to their friends online.
On Clubhouse. Locked in their apartment.
Hey, Aaron, let's go out drinking. No, there's this really good Clubhouse going on. How about tomorrow? No, there's this really good Clubhouse going on.
Yeah. No, it is scary in a way to think that a lot of these cultural norms might go away. And, like post-pandemic, you can imagine in 20 years, like, did you hear, like, in Japan, they used to have this thing where they would go out drinking, like, on weekdays, and the bosses would invite them, and you had to say yes. Oh, yeah, that was pre-pandemic. Things were crazy back then. Like, I can already imagine when we're older, hearing about this kind of stuff.
We're already turning into those old gaijins. It's scary.
Yeah, but... I can already see it being like that in 20 years or so. And the same thing for other countries that are taking this seriously,
Speaking of things that look like they're about to change quite dramatically, lots of local governments, including Tokyo, as part of the pandemic, have been cracking down on drinking outside.
Really?
Yes. And so I think most recently, Governor Koike was calling on convenience stores to, I don't know how she wants them to do this, but to discourage people from drinking outside convenience stores.
Wow. Hear that, foreigners in Japan.
Yeah, that's like... it's like college never happened.
We're going to lose Family Mart. Family Mart, man, in Shibuya. That's like, I think some people listening might know. There's a very specific Family Mart in Shibuya, and that's like where everybody meets, and that's people will spend the whole night there.
In other news, Strong Zero has ceased to exist.
Oh, gosh. It's so sad, man. That's so sad. But who knows? Maybe, this will all breed innovation and we'll have new ways to party in the future.
I just hope it's not those damn Zoom nomikais.
Oh, God.
Those suck.
Yeah, for sure. Those really suck. Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.